Welcome to our top 5 gainers and top 5 losers analysis for Wednesday, March 27, 2019. I'm JC De Guzman. These are the 10 stocks that I'll be discussing tonight. We have LSC, T, MB, SMC2, 2I, GEO or GEO, APO, MWC, PXP, X, and SOC. Okay. I have already checked a while back if any of these 10 stocks have has any dividend announcements, but none of them has any future dividend announcements. Let's begin checking the chart of LSE then. Okay, LSE. LSE or Lorenzo Shipping Corporation closed today at 1.04. It broke out above the previous resistance at 1 peso. So that makes 1.14 as the new resistance and the previous resistance as the newest support. Okay. Now just in case the price will retreat below or going towards 1 peso per share, that will make 0.78 as the immediate support. But for now, resistance is at 1.14, support is at 1 peso per share. Today's green candlestick increased the gap above the 10-day simple moving average, and that is in favor of the bulls, of course. And today's green candlestick also came with a huge volume bar that is goes without saying, it's already above the 10-day volume average, and that triggered to a spike on the MACD above the signal line. I just want to give a fair warning that LSC's RSI has already touched the overbought territory. Well, say classical belief tells us that when the RSI score hits the 80% level, that's already an overbought signal. But there's another way of interpreting that. Sometimes when the RSI hits 80%, it's not a sign for you to sell. Sometimes it's a confirmation of a strong bullish momentum. But we have to be safe than sorry, so my recommendation when that happens is to lock in some profits. You can always sell a few tranches if you don't want to sell everything at once. Okay? Now the volatility score of LSE is at 62%. That gives LSE a moderate risk level. Foreign investors sold. Let's check the foreign investors transaction today. It's 200,000 pesos worth of net foreign selling. The closing price again is at 1.04, and that is closer. Not really close. Yeah, it's closer to the intraday low than to the intraday high. Okay, so the range that got the biggest volume and the highest number of trades is between 1.02 all the way to, actually it's not 1.02 but 1.35 all the way to 1.40, 1.35 to 1.40. So but since the closing price is at 1.04, we need to catch a range that's closer to the closing price. So therefore I'm going to choose 1.15 all the way to 1.26 or 1.28, 1.15 to 1.28 as the range that got the biggest volume and the highest number of trades. Well, of course, together with the previous range that I mentioned a while back. So it's actually it's relatively evenly balanced. It's evenly balanced. Today's volume and the number of trades, it's almost evenly dispersed. Okay, so that's why a while back I mentioned that you should also consider locking in some profits right now on the current price of LSC. Okay, you can maybe sell 1 or 2 tranches and then keep those remaining tranches so that you could still benefit should the price continue to move higher than 1.04. My overall sentiment is neutral to bullish. Okay, neutral to bullish. So I've given you my recommendation already, especially if you already have a position on LSE. If you don't have any LSE shares, my recommendation is that you continue monitoring the price movement tomorrow. If you see a relatively huge volume, then you can consider doing a test buy, not at any price, but of course within the range that got the biggest volume and the highest number of trades. And just in case you don't know how to check that yet, then you can also post in our private clients forum inside the discussion tab on your dashboard and post a request for my latest analysis, price volume distribution analysis of LSE, if you are interested to trade the name. Okay, that's it for LSE. Let's move on to TKC Metals. T closed today at 1.06, support is at 0.96, resistance is at 1.22. Today's green candlestick came with a strong volume that's above the 10-day volume average. Although T is bullish in the short-term and long-term scales, I prefer to see the price moving above 1.11 so that the 10 SMA will cross above the 50 SMA, and when that happens, we will be seeing a perfect bullish alignment of the moving averages. But until then, nonetheless, MACD has already crossed above the signal line with the passing of the price above the 10 SMA and with the crossing of the MACD above the signal line. You know the drill. That combo emits or gives us a buy signal, okay, for TKC. But hold on, wait for my overall sentiment later. Later on, I'm going to give you my overall sentiment. Okay. Now, the historical volatility of T is at 53%. That makes TKC a moderate risk stock. Now let's take a look at the volume that got the biggest range and the highest number of trades. I'm not going to mention the net foreign because it's an insignificant amount worth. Okay, it's 200,000 pesos worth of net foreign selling. The closing price of 1.06 is closer to the intraday low than to the intraday high. The range that got the biggest volume and the highest number of trades is between, it's also equally dispersed almost. So that would be between 1.15 or 1.10 all the way to 1.35. It's almost evenly dispersed, the volume and the number of trades. Okay. Anyway, my overall sentiment on TKC is bullish. Okay. Now it doesn't mean I'm bullish on TKC, but that doesn't mean that you should consider that as an automatic signal to enter a new position on the stock. There's a possibility for TKC to register a price that's not really higher than the resistance at 1.22, because if you've noticed, it crossed that resistance level today, but it retreated, meaning to say traders did not really see a big reason for them to stay above 1.22. So there was a tug of war between the bears and the bulls, so to say, and TKC just decided to settle at 1.06 from an intraday high of 1.38. Imagine that. Okay, so even though I'm bullish, again, for those who don't have TKC yet, my advice is that you don't buy just yet. Wait for some confirmation of the continuity of this bullish sentiment of TKC. If within the first 5 to 10 minutes you see that there's a strong demand to buy the stock at a price higher than 1.06 or maybe at 1.010, then that's the time that you should entertain the idea of doing a test buy. But if it's a weak start for TKC, I'd rather stay on the sidelines for now. For those of you who already have TKC in your portfolio, my advice is that you stick with your trailing stop loss. Okay. Alright, so let's move on to the next stock in our list, and we have MB. Manila Bulletin Publishing Corporation, or MB, closed today at 0.61. Support is at 0.46. Support is at 0. That's the previous support, 0.46. The newest support now is at 0.60. The resistance is at 0.91. MB just broke out above the previous resistance at 0.60 today, and that happened with the volume above the 10-day volume average. MACD remains bearish, but there's it seems that it's not just so obvious, but I think there's a bullish convergence is being formed between MACD and signal line. I think we will only get a clearer confirmation or a clearer view of that once the price continues to move higher than 0.61 tomorrow, if that happens, if that will happen. Okay. Historical volatility is pegged at 77%, and that already gives MB a high risk level. Newbie traders, take note of that. It's already a high risk stock. Okay. The closing price of 0.61. By the way, there's no foreign transaction on MB. Okay, this is not open to foreign investors. The closing price of 0.61 is almost at the center of the intraday high and the intraday low for today. The range that got the biggest volume and the highest number of trades is pegged between 0.58 all the way to 0.68. So it's a 10 centavo range, 10 fluctuations, 0.68 to 0.58 to 0.68. My overall sentiment on MB is neutral to bullish. Neutral to bullish. Okay. I have some reservations because it's been just 2 days that MB has been registering daily volumes above the 10-day volume average, so I'm not that confident yet to remove the word neutral from my overall sentiment. That's why it's neutral to bullish. For those of you who already have MB, stick with your trailing stop loss as usual. For those who don't have MB yet, please observe the price action within the first 3 to 5 minutes tomorrow. If you see some continuity, or if you see a continuation of today's green candlestick within the first 3 to 5 minutes, then consider doing a test buy, but be very quick to cut your losses should things turn sour after 15 to 30 minutes. Okay, that's it for MB. Now let's move on to SMC2I. Okay, San Miguel Corporation Series 2I preferred shares. This is a preferred stock. Okay, normally I don't want to discuss preferred shares in my top 5 gainers and top 5 losers analysis because these are, again, preferred stocks, and sometimes there are liquidity issues on preferred stocks. Well, that's obvious. Take a look at the volume histogram. Do you see these sudden spikes? There's an irregularity. Some concerns regarding volume. But anyhow, since it made it in our top 5 gainers list, based on our parameters of filtering the stocks that got the highest total turnover value, let's discuss its chart then. SMC2I closed today at 75 pesos. Resistance is at 75 pesos as well. Support is at 72.7. It's at the brink of crossing above, piercing out the resistance at 75 pesos a piece. Today's green candlestick is a little bit shy below the 10-day volume average, so I'm not that confident to say that we're going to see any continuity on the ascent in price of SMC2I given this relatively low volume. It's not terribly low, but it's still below the 10-day volume average. So it might just bounce away from 75 pesos per share. So if you have a position on SMC2I, I suggest you sell near 75. And if you don't have one yet, then I don't recommend trading SMC2I. Don't trade preferred stocks. Stick with common shares. Okay, especially you newbie traders, if there's any of you who is relatively new in trading who's listening right now. Okay, so the historical volatility of SMC2I is 33%. Ignore SMC2I for now, even though it has a low risk stock. Okay, there are some liquidity issues. Just take a look at the number of trades for today. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 trades. Yeah, did you see that? So anyhow, the range that got the biggest volume and the highest number of trades is pegged between 74 to 75. 74 to 75. My overall sentiment on, I think I already gave you my overall sentiment and recommendation. Okay, I'm actually neutral on SMC2I. Lock in your profits at 75 pesos. Don't trade it just yet. Pick some common share stocks. Okay. So after SMC2I, we have GEO, GEO, however you want to call it. Okay. GeoGrace Resources Philippines Incorporated, or GEO, closed today at 0.27. Resistance is at 0.27 as well. Support is at 0.195. This ascent in price that touched the resistance was registered with a volume that's above its 10-day volume average, and this is the first time since when? Since March 6 that GEO registered a volume that's above the 10-day volume average in favor of the bulls. Okay, the price is already moving above the 10-day simple moving average. MACD is also above the signal line. Okay, historical volatility is at 58%, and that gives GEO a moderate risk level. Now, before I make a comment about my overall sentiment, let's take a look first. Take a look at its price volume distribution. Price volume distribution. The closing price of 0.27 is closer to the intraday high than to the intraday low. The range that got the biggest volume and the highest number of trades is between 0.255 all the way to 0.285. My overall sentiment on GEO is neutral to bullish. There goes my reservation with the word neutral again, because this is the first time, like what I mentioned a while back, this is the first time since March 6 that GEO has given us a volume above its 10-day volume average in favor of the green candlestick. So there you go. If you are like me, who is not super confident, super bullish on GEO, you may want to lock in some profits near 0.27. If you'd like to, park it at 0.28 or a little bit higher, depending on what you will see tomorrow within the first 15 to 30 minutes of trading. If you don't have GEO yet, well, be on a wait and see mode. Observe the price action tomorrow. Again and again, just entertain the idea of entering a new position, of doing a test buy, if the ascent in price is supported with volume. Okay? Don't risk it if you don't see any support coming from the volume. Okay? It's very simple, right? It's very simple. Price volume. Correlation between the two. Okay? Now, let's move on to the top 5 losers, beginning with APO. Anglo-Philippine Holdings Corporation closed today at 0.90. I covered this stock yesterday in yesterday's video, and I mentioned to you that you should consider locking in some profits near 1.14. Right? Who among you watched the video for yesterday? Okay, let me know in the private clients forum if you have follow-up questions. So support is now at 0.89. Resistance is at 1.14. Today's descent in price came with a staggering volume that's above its 10-day volume average as usual. Not really as usual, but again, because it was above the 10-day volume average yesterday too. Okay, so the MACD, RSI, and the volatility histograms have now started to normalize to their normal level. They just fluctuated so erratically 2 days ago. It shot up. Of course, the price shot up. What do you expect with the indicators that use the current price or the closing price? Of course, they will shoot up as well. Inorganically, okay, in a non-organic manner, so to say. Now let's take a look at the volume. Price volume distribution. It's a net foreign buying worth 300,000 pesos today, or make it 400,000 pesos worth of net foreign buying. It's still an insignificant amount. The closing price of 0.90 is closer to the intraday low than the intraday high. So the range that got the biggest volume and the highest number of trades is parked between 1.25 all the way to 1.33. 1.25 to 1.33. But given the closing price of 0.90, I won't even advise you to park another buying price near that range that got the biggest volume and the highest number of trades. Therefore, my overall sentiment on APO is bearish, and you should have sold your positions by now. Not by now, but a while back, of course. And please don't entertain yet the idea of entering a new position tomorrow until you see a weakening of the bearish momentum of APO. Okay, again and again, check the price and the volume. Don't forget the correlation between the two. Sometimes all it takes is common sense, really, to understand when you should enter a new position and when not, when to, be patient and continue monitoring until you see some confirmations on buying signals. Now let's move on to MWC. Has the water-related problem in Manila resolved already? I think it has not yet because there are still some rants, which I understand. I do understand why. On my Facebook news feeds about our friends having some water-related problems in the metro. Anyhow, MWC closed today at 23.65. Support is at 23.4. Resistance is at 25 pesos per share. The downtrend in price has intensified as it gets support, bearish support, coming from the volume. It's also above the 10-day volume average. Of course. Red candlestick and a volume that's above the 10-day volume average. That combination is fatal. It's fatal. I would say as early as now that the downtrend in price is more likely to continue. Okay, it's more likely to continue. MACD remains bearish. Okay, and RSI is already, it's almost touching the oversold territory. There you go. Watch out for the price to touch 23.4 or maybe 23 pesos per share. If you see any signs, any signs of a weakening downtrend momentum within that level, 23.4 to 23 pesos per share, then entertain the idea of doing a test buy. Again, not because the price hits 23.4 or 23 pesos, it doesn't mean you should automatically buy just because you saw that the price entering that zone. You have to reevaluate the situation. If when the price enters the 23 to 23.4 territory, see if there's a weakening of volume. If the volume weakens within that territory or price range, it means to say those who are really decided to sell MWC may have already sold everything that they wanted to sell. They have been exhausted already. So in other words, catch those signs of selling exhaustion. As long as you don't see any exhaustion in terms of selling momentum, then don't rush into the idea of buying MWC. Okay? If you don't have MWC, keep that in mind. And if you do have MWC, until now, I bet you have been just relying on prayers since then. You should not have MWC by now, especially if you bought above 26 pesos or above. You should have not even bought at 25. The downward momentum remains strong. Today's net foreign transaction is 19 million pesos worth of net foreign selling. Even the foreign investors are not happy with it. The closing price of 23.65 got a volume, got 66% of today's volume, and it got 98 trades, the highest number of trades in a particular price point. So I cannot nominate a range that got the biggest volume and the highest number of trades because it was absorbed entirely by that single price point, 23.65. It's all the more that you should monitor the price near 23 to 23.4. Take note, 23.65 is super close to the intraday low of 23.60. I gave you my overall sentiment and recommendations already. Moving on, let's take a look at PXP. PXP Energy Corporation, or PXP, closed today at 12.20. Support remains at 9.84. Resistance has not moved at 13.6. I covered PXP in the previous videos, and I said in my previous videos that I was bearish, and I still am. I still am bearish. I'm still bearish on PXP. Today's red candlestick continues to register a red volume above the 10-day volume average. MACD shows no signs of a bullish convergence with the signal line. It's still a bearish divergence with the signal line up to now. Okay. Oh, let's take a look at this one. Hold on. Let me plot this line here. Okay, here's the thing. RSI has already touched. It has almost 1% away, 2% away from touching the classical oversold territory. There's a possibility for a PXP to treat 11.60 as a rebounding area, by the way. That's the midterm support, a precursor to 9.84. So watch out for 11.6. PXP is already at 12.20. Watch out for 11.60 tomorrow, people. 11.60. Now, if it touches 11.60 and volume is still relatively high, then snap the idea for the possibility of a rebound at 11.60. Okay, when that happens, as PXP might just retest the previous support at 9.84 then. Okay, I've already given you my recommendations already as early as that. Anyhow, let's take a look at the range that got the biggest volume and the highest number of trades. But before that, net foreign selling worth 800 or 900,000 was registered today. The closing price of 12.20 is closer to the intraday low than to the intraday high. The range that got the biggest volume and the highest number of trades is between 12.30 all the way to 12.50. 12.30 to 12.50. I am bearish on PXP, and I've given you my recommendations already. Now let's take a look at X. Surpass. So X closed today at 1.13. Support is at 1.05. Resistance is at 1.31. The red candlestick continues its direction below the 10-day simple moving average, and I'm really bearish on the alignment of the moving averages. Okay, today's red candlestick came with a volume that's higher than the previous two bearish days. It's above the 10-day volume average. MACD remains bearish. It continues its bearish divergence from the signal line. The volatility score is at 67%. That makes X a moderate risk stock. Once it crosses the 70% level, that makes X a high risk stock then. Okay, net foreign trade for 2019 year to date is net foreign selling for Surpass. It registered another net foreign selling today worth 6 million pesos. The closing price of 1.13 is closer to the intraday low than the intraday high. The range that got the biggest volume and the highest number of trades is between 1.13 to 1.20. 1.13 to 1.20. My overall sentiment on X is okay. Your guess is as good as mine. Bearish. Okay, it's a bearish overall sentiment on X. Wait for the price to hit 1.05, 1 peso to 1.05. If the downtrend weakens in terms of volume within that range, 1.05 to 1 peso per share, then there's a possibility that it may have already found its psychological bottom between 1 peso to 1.05. But we are yet to see that. We are yet to see a confirmation, okay, for that. So my recommendation is wait near that level. Don't buy just yet. Don't hurry. Don't hurry. And if you still have X right now, if you still have X, make sure that you respect your trailing stop loss. Okay, prayers are good, but you can't use much of that. You can't use prayers alone when it comes to trading. Now let's move on to the last stock for today. We have SOC again. I think I've talked about SOC for 3 days already. So SOC closed today at 1.12. It failed to ascend above 1.42, the current resistance, and now it's about to break down below. It already broke down below 1.13, and that makes 1.13 its current resistance. And 0.71 is the major support. The midterm support is at 0.97. Today's red candlestick came with a red volume that's above the 10-day volume average. Because of the erratic fluctuation of the price in the past 3 days, our other indicators are still in the abnormal position. Unnatural, unorganic, or inorganic positions, levels. Okay, so I'm not going to make a comment about MACD, RSI, or historical volatility. Okay. Now let's take a look at the range that got the biggest volume and the highest number of trades. Never mind the net foreign trade, it's only 33,000 pesos worth of net foreign buying. The closing price of 1.12 is closer to the intraday low than the intraday high. The range that got the biggest volume and the highest number of trades is between 1.10 all the way to 1.20. 1.10 to 1.20. My overall sentiment remains bearish on SOC. And if you already have SOC, congratulations if you sold near 1.42 or even at 1.13. Okay. If you don't have SOC, don't buy at 1.13 just yet. Not yet. Not yet. It's a red candlestick today, people. Make sure that you evaluate the situation. Don't focus your eyes on the price alone. Take a look at the volume as well. It should be automatic. Price, volume, volume, price, price, volume, volume, price. Okay, should be automatic. Okay, so don't hurry. You should have already sold your position. I'm bearish on SOC. Alright, there you go for today's top 5 gainers and top 5 losers analysis for Wednesday, March 27, 2019. I would like to encourage you, by the way, to read the complete description of our revised smart index investing strategy for long-term investing on this page. You go to our website at www.equilis.com, services, subscription, and then click on investment guide for long-term investors. Please read every word from the first letter to the very last punctuation mark. Okay, read everything with understanding, please, so that you could really see the value and appreciate the value of our smart index investing strategy, or SIIS for short. Okay. Alright, so if you have follow-up questions, please post them inside the discussion board or our private clients forum on your account. Here, discussion. Okay. So there you go for today's top 5 gainers and top 5 losers analysis. My name is JC De Guzman. May you have a profitable trading day tomorrow. Have a good night.